In a world that constantly demands our attention, focusing on yourself has become a radical act of self-respect. We're pulled in every direction by social media, by expectations, by other people's opinions. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, we forget to check in with the one person who matters most to ourselves. That's where self-worth begins. Not in validation, not in applause, but in that quiet, intentional space of self-focus. Self-focus isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. It's the conscious decision to turn inward, to reflect on who you are without the filters of comparison and judgment. When you make yourself the priority, you begin to take ownership of your growth, your mindset, and your energy. You start to set boundaries not to push people away, but to protect your peace. You start to make decisions that reflect your values, your goals, and your standards, not what's trending or what pleases others. Think about it. How can you know your worth if you never spend time discovering who you are? Most people are so busy looking outwards that they forget to look within. They chase titles, approval, likes, and followers, hoping those things will fill the gap inside. But real self-worth isn't something you find out there. It's something you build in solitude, brick by brick, through consistency, self-reflection, and personal growth. Focusing on yourself also means becoming aware of your inner dialogue. You start to notice how you speak to yourself, how you carry your failures, and how you interpret setbacks. And when you're focused, you can correct that voice. You can begin to replace doubt with discipline, insecurity with self-compassion. That shift doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you slow down enough to listen and when you have the courage to confront the truth about where you are and who you're becoming. As you continue to focus inward, you begin to detach your worth from your performance. You start to see that your value isn't based on how much you produce or how well you perform for others. Instead, it's rooted in your existence, your willingness to grow, to evolve, and to keep showing up for yourself. That's a quiet power. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need to be posted or praised. It just is. When you put that kind of energy into yourself, the way you move changes. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with more clarity. You stop chasing people who never saw your value because you've already found it within. And in that process, something incredible happens. Your standards rise. Not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. You begin to expect more because you've given yourself. Focusing on yourself also helps you get honest about what you want out of life. You stop settling at Stanford. You stop shrinking. You realize that your dreams aren't too big. They were just waiting for you to pay attention. And when you do, you no longer need permission to pursue them. Silence is one of the most underestimated forces in the world, in a culture obsessed with noise, where everyone is trying to be seen, heard, and validated. Silence feels like absence, but in truth, silence is presence. It's control. It's power disguised in stillness. People often assume that silence means weakness or a lack of something to say, but silence is rarely empty. It's often full of discipline, full of strategy, full of observation. When you're silent, you gain an edge. You hear more. You see more. You understand what's really going on beneath the surface because you're not rushing to speak. You're watching, you're listening, and you're taking mental notes while others expose their thoughts, their plans, their weaknesses. Silence gives you clarity because it removes the clutter. It allows you to process before you respond rather than reacting emotionally or impulsively. In silence, you develop self-mastery. You learn to resist the urge to explain yourself to everyone, especially those who aren't committed to understanding you. You start to understand that not every opinion deserves a response. Not every challenge requires a counterattack. When you don't speak every time you're triggered, you build emotional strength. You start controlling the conversation without saying a word. That kind of composure is rare, and that rarity is what makes it powerful. Silence also protects your energy. Words are energy. Time is energy, and giving explanations, defending your position, or trying to convince others drains both. When you're silent, you're not wasting your breath on debates that don't matter. You're over sharing your vision with people who haven't earned the right to hear it. You're conserving your power, keeping it close, letting it build. There's also something deeply strategic about silence. When you move quietly, you remove external pressure. You're not performing for anyone. You're not living for applause. You're working in the dark, refining your skills, stacking your wins, while the world assumes you're standing still. Then one day, Your progress speaks so loudly it shocks everyone who thought you had nothing to say. That's the moment silence turns into statement, not spoken but shown. Silence, when paired with purpose, becomes momentum. The daily grind, the early mornings, the late nights, those aren't for show. They're part of a quiet storm building behind the scenes. And while others are focused on appearances, you're focused on results. No distractions, no announcements, just work. Silence becomes your shield and your sword, defending your peace while sharpening your vision. It's also during moments of silence that we hear our own voice the loudest, that inner voice, the one that gets drowned out by noise, starts to rise. In silence, intuition gets stronger. Focus sharpens. Clarity comes. Stanford. You begin to hear the truth you've been avoiding, the ideas you've been sitting on, the direction you were meant to take. That kind of inner dialogue can't be accessed in chaos. It requires stillness. It requires listening. It requires silence. Energy is one of the most valuable currencies you have, and unlike money, once it's spent, you don't get it back in the same form. Every thought you entertain, every conversation you engage in, every task you commit to, it all has a cost. People often focus on where they spend their time, but rarely ask where they spend their energy. And yet, your energy is what determines the quality of your time. You can have all the time in the world, but if your energy is drained, that time is worthless. The truth is, you are either investing energy or wasting it. And the way you manage that energy dictates the outcomes in your life. Energy isn't just about physical strength or stamina. It's mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's what you give attention to, what you worry about, who you try to please, and what you allow to take up space in your mind. Every distraction costs energy. Every unnecessary argument costs energy. Every moment spent in regret, resentment, or comparison drains your capacity to move forward. People think burnout comes from doing too much. More often, it comes from doing too much of what doesn't matter. When your energy is scattered in 100 directions, chasing approval, stressing over things you can't control, entertaining negativity, you have nothing left for what really moves your life forward. And that's the trap. You feel busy, but you're not productive. You're exhausted, but not fulfilled. That's the price of poor energy management. Start thinking of your energy like money. You don't hand out $100 bills to people who don't value you. So why give your attention and focus to things that give you nothing in return? You have to protect your energy the same way you protect your finances. Be selective about where it goes. Audit your conversations. Evaluate your commitments. Cut off the people habits and thoughts that give you nothing but take everything. High-level focus requires high-level energy. That means you can't afford to give your best to distractions. You can't keep spending energy proving yourself, fixing other people, or reliving your past. You need that energy to build, to create, to evolve. And the more you conserve your energy for the things that matter, your growth, your purpose, your goals, the faster you begin to see results. People with strong energy management don't just move different, they live differently. Understand that peace is expensive. Focus is expensive. And to afford them, you have to spend less on things that don't align with your vision. It's a discipline, not just about saying no to others, but about saying yes to yourself. Saying yes to rest, yes to boundaries, yes to environments that fuel you instead of drain you. Energy, once invested in the right direction, becomes momentum. Momentum becomes results. And results become transformation. In a world full of talkers, the quietest person in the room often carries the most weight. You don't need to announce everything you're working on. You don't need to prove your worth with words, because the most powerful statements aren't spoken. They're shown. When your results speak for you, there's nothing left to debate, and research rolls at Stanford. There's no room for doubt. You stop needing to convince people because what you've built becomes the evidence. People will always have something to say. They'll question your motives. At Stanford, your goals, your methods. They'll underestimate you, misunderstand you, and even mock your silence. But talk fades, opinions change. What lasts is what you produce. What stands is what you build. Results don't lie. They don't need validation. They're undeniable. And that's why they speak louder than anything you could ever say. When you let your results speak, you step out of the noise and into your power. You no longer get distracted by proving your point, defending your dream, or explaining your vision to people who weren't built to see it. Instead, you put your head down, focus on the work, and allow the outcome to do the talking. That mindset shifts everything. It moves you from seeking attention to commanding respect, not through arrogance, but through action. Results take time. They require patience, consistency, and silence. You don't get results by constantly reacting to critics or seeking constant applause. You get them by staying disciplined when nobody's watching. You get them by waking up early, staying late, practicing when it's uncomfortable, and pushing through when the excitement fades. That's the process most people never see. But it's the very process that separates those who talk from those who deliver. There's also a deeper level of confidence that comes from knowing what you've done, even if no one else knows yet. That internal pride, that quiet strength, it's not built through public recognition. It's built in isolation. And when the time comes to show what you've been working on, it hits different because it's Stanford. It's real. It's Irvin. And no one can take that away. Letting your results speak is also about maturity. It's the ability to delay recognition in exchange for long-term credibility. It's choosing progress over praise. You don't need to tell the world you're working. You just work. And eventually they'll have no choice but to notice. Because consistent execution becomes impossible to ignore. Results start speaking in every room your words never entered. They show up in opportunities, in doors opening, in respect earned without a single explanation given. There's a power that comes with staying quiet and staying focused. While others chase the spotlight, you chase improvement. While they post for attention, you build for impact. And the impact always lasts longer. Results make the loudest noise in the quietest way. They don't shout. They simply arrive with proof, with presence, with precision. They speak in numbers, in performance, in transformation. And once they speak, you don't have to. Growth is personal. Transformation is private. The road from where you are to you want to be isn't always meant to be shared, explained, or broadcasted. In a time where people are expected to document every move, there's something powerful about keeping your process to yourself, because not everyone deserves access to it. Not because you're hiding, but because your process is sacred. Your process is messy. It's full of trial and error, setbacks, restarts, and silent wins. It's where your character is built, where your self-doubt is fought, and where your discipline is tested. That kind of vulnerability isn't for public consumption. It's not something that should be open to commentary from people who haven't earned the right to speak into your life. Letting the wrong people into your process can distract you, drain you, or even derail you. Their opinions, doubts, or misunderstanding of your journey can shake your focus if you're not careful. Not everyone will understand the sacrifices you're making. They won't see the vision clearly. And many don't have the patience to watch something develop slowly. People want finished products. They respect outcomes, not effort. And if you let too many people into your process too early, and Reese rolls at Stanford, you'll end up seeking validation instead of staying committed to your purpose. You'll be tempted to adjust your moves to please others instead of staying aligned with your long-term goals. There's also a protective element to keeping your process private. Early ideas are fragile. Dreams in progress are easily shaken. If you expose them to people who think small, live in fear, or carry jealousy, you risk allowing their energy to poison your path. They might project their limits onto you, plant seeds of doubt, or mock what they don't understand. And sometimes those voices don't come from enemies. They come from family, friends, or people close to you who simply don't get it. That's why discernment is key. You have to know who's safe for your process, who respects it, who supports without needing constant updates, who celebrates you in silence, not just when the spotlight hits. The people who deserve access to your process are the ones who've proven they can handle your silence, your mistakes, and your moments of uncertainty without judgment. They uplift without pressuring. They ask without intruding. They walk beside you, not ahead of you. Keeping your process to yourself also strengthens your independence. You learn to trust your own voice. You become your own motivation. You stop depending on applause or agreement to keep going. And in that solitude, you grow a kind of resilience that can't be faked. You stop explaining and you start executing. You stop defending and you start delivering. That's the shift. When your process becomes yours alone, not something to be picked apart, questioned, or put on display for the sake of likes or approval, discipline is the invisible force behind every great achievement. And when it's practiced in silence, it becomes even more powerful. The world often celebrates loud success. Public victories, flashy moments, grand announcements. But the truth is, real progress doesn't start in the spotlight. It starts in the shadows, in the quiet hours when no one is watching. Discipline in silence is what separates those who only talk about change from those who actually create it. There's something transformative about showing up consistently without needing recognition. Waking up early, training alone, studying while others sleep, working on your craft without telling a soul. Those habits build more than skills. They build self-respect. They build character. And over time, they build momentum. Every day you stay disciplined, you're stacking wins. They may be small, invisible to others, but they compound. They gain weight. They move you forward. Momentum isn't created by big, loud moves. It's built through quiet consistency. One disciplined choice at a time. One step repeated again and again until it becomes second nature. People often wait for motivation to strike, but momentum doesn't wait. It responds to movement. And when you practice discipline in silence, you're not relying on motivation. You're relying on systems. You're not performing for applause. You're performing for progress. Staying quiet during the process also eliminates distractions. It helps you keep your head down and focus. Because the moment you start talking about what you're doing, you're inviting noise. Opinions, expectations, questions. Some people may cheer, others may criticize. Either way, it can pull you off course. But silence keeps you locked in. It creates a tunnel where you can zone in on the work, not the response. Discipline in silence is also humbling. It reminds you that success isn't guaranteed and results don't come overnight. It forces you to grind without a promise, to show up even when it feels like nothing's happening. And that's where true strength is built. Not when things are easy, but when it would be easier to quit and you choose to keep going anyway. Over time, and this silent discipline becomes your foundation. It stabilizes you. It makes your mindset unshakable. Because when you've done the work behind the scenes, when you've been consistent in the dark, you don't panic under pressure. You don't fold when things get hard. You've already been tested. You've already earned your momentum. And that momentum begins to take on a life of its own. It starts to carry you forward on days when your energy is low. It begins to create opportunities. It builds a confidence, not you talk about, but the kind you carry, quiet, kind of unshakable confidence that can only be earned. And as that momentum grows, so does your capacity. What used to be difficult becomes your new standard. The small things you did silently start producing results that speak loudly. And by the time the world notices, you're already 10 steps ahead in a world that moves fast and talks loud. Real power is found in restraint, in silence, and in focus. When you learn to direct your energy inward, to build quietly, to grow privately, to sharpen yourself in solitude, you stop chasing validation and start creating results. That too, you don't need to explain your vision to people who can't see it. You don't need to announce your moves or defend your process, because your discipline becomes your proof, and your silence becomes your strength, and your results become your voice. Focus on yourself, not because the world doesn't matter, but because you can't give your best to the world until you've given it to yourself first. And stay silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because your actions will say everything when the time is right.